Okay, first of all, I want to congratulations Professor Carpenter for this well-deserved award, and thank you, Narcisse, and all the organizers for inviting me. I have to recognize that as a former student of this institution, it's a deep honor to be here, but it's very challenging for me, so I will try to do my best. So the idea here is to move to the marine communities, marine ecosystems, and I will try to summarize all the examples, or many examples that we have in marine ecology, and also to put some limitations or challenges that we have in these environments. So as probably you know, and Professor Carpenter mentioned, there are many marine ecosystems that are characterized by these non-linearities. Most of this research, or the past research until now, was focusing on to know what was the main controls, top-down from bottom-up controls. But here in this new situation of the Anthropocene, I call them marine ecosystems in the Anthropocene, we are changing this regime disturbance. So it's important to know what will happen in the future. Well, this is one of the first examples that I will show you. We have several evidence for marine, well, several evidence from marine benthic ecosystems, but there are few for pelagic ecosystems. This is one showing in a paper by Schaeffer, Carpenter, and de Jong that show these phase shifts in these pelagic food webs that caused by the overfishing of large predatory fishes like cod. But as I mentioned, there are few in the pelagic ones. But moving to the benthic ecosystems where I work, as mentioned also, coral reefs is the best ecosystems that provide most of the examples of this. And this was explained by Professor Carpenter, that we have these alternate states moving from healthy reefs with high coral cover and to barren or algae-dominate reefs. And this is the main drivers of these shifts are overfishing that cause the reduction of herbivores, but also the excess of nutrients. This has been extensively in the literature, and as you can see, these alternate states and the mechanism and the feedbacks, the positive feedbacks and negative feedbacks that maintain these alternatives is well known. And probably you have to look this here, it's climate change is also causing this, or we expect that this cause more regime shifts. Another examples come from a different system, that is the Kelp Forest. This is a little bit different because the problem here is that trophic cascades goes through the loss of top predators, cause an increase of sea urchins. That sea urchins is the main herbivores in the marine systems, and these herbivores causing these barrens, that these are dominate, but they are very simplified ecosystems with low diversity. And this type of changes have been seen in several regions around the world, mainly caused by the overfishing, by a top-down control, but also for the climate change. And this is an example, for example, in Tasmania, that we can see that there is a problem with this. We have the loss of these top predators have caused an increase of these sea urchins, but the increase of sea urchins is also caused by the climate. Climate driving an expansion of these sea urchins. So the fishing is eroding this resilience, but climate change is also helping to unfold to another alternate state, that is what we don't want. But in marine ecosystems, particularly marine ecosystems, but probably in much more others, we have this problem of the increasing stressors in the sense of the local stressors, but global stressors also related to climate change. And what we have seen, this is a really recent paper that showed that not only barren are sea urchins barren as an alternative stage, but also the increasing of turf. Turf is basically dominated by species of algae that are fast-growing species, very opportunistic, and that they simplify really much the ecosystems. So the problem in marine ecosystems, this happens also in coral reefs, it's that over the time we can see new alternate states, new phase shifts that we could expect some years before. But come back to our home, to our coast, and this is an example. Well, this is a photo from Quique Ballesteros that is here. We have these phase shifts, not kelp forest, but we have this macroalgal forest, basically dominated by genus Cysticoera, that an increase of these sea urchins goes mainly all the time by the overfishing of the systems. Can change to these simplified ecosystems. But one of the things that it's important, and this is a paper by many authors here, Jordi Boada, Javier Romero, Rohan, Teresa, that it's important not only focusing on the top-down controls, the problem of overfishing, if not, it's looking for inherent conditions. Briefly, I explained that these alternate states, this barren, in oligotrophic areas is causing with less sea urchins density. And this is the nutrients seems that provide a buffer capacity against these non-linearities. This is one of the, all of the research that has done in marine ecosystems. It's important to, because this is related to some question there, it's important to know the stressors, by both the physical and biological, but also the characteristics of the internal dynamics of each ecosystems. And this is in order to have a holistic view of marine regime shifts. Another thing is what happens in marine ecosystems is that we are changing the frequency and the intensity and the spatial scale of the climate change, of the extreme events related to weather. And in the marine ecosystems, we have this problem with the heat waves. And heat waves the ecosystems can respond in two ways. In regime shifts or in changes in species composition. In a regime shifts, this is an example from Australia, from the southern Australia. In 2011, there was a really huge heat wave that caused a really climate-driving regime shift from kelp forest to turf and sea barrens. And this is only mainly caused by the temperature in this year. But come back to the examples of coral reefs, and this slides was provided by Terry Hughes that was here 3 weeks ago, presenting these results. We have these problems also in the Great Barrier Reef. The Great Barrier Reef has bleached, the mass bleaching of corals has occurred in 4 times. And the problem is that the increase of the severity of these heat waves are increasing. For example, in the Great Barrier Reef, these authors, Hughes and collaborators, have seen that only 7% of the reef have been escaped to the damage. And there is a really clear changing in species composition with the presence of several winner species more resistant than the others. But another question that this paper appeared last week, and it was already mentioned by Steve. This is about ecological memory. The Great Barrier Reef has bleached 4 times, but 2 times during the last 2 years. And this is But the question about this is which is the role of the ecological memory? Understand as the ability of the past to influence the present trajectory of the change. Did the memory of 2016 matter in 2017? The authors found that yes. 2017 was hotter, so the thermal anomaly was bigger, but the mortality was less than expected, that was previously expected. So, of course, there are several mechanisms here explaining this ecological memory. like acclimatization, shifts in species composition to more resistance, several others. But I think that this is an important question, and the other, that it's a study that we performed with Terry, but with Basilis and Edgar Barnes, is what the problem, we were worried about the most of the ecological studies of regime shifts was in high dynamics ecosystems and relatively slow, relatively simple ecosystems, no? But the transitions of, and Jordi said this in forest also, that the transitions between ecological can be slow. You can see that the red line is what expect, no? The black one is that we expect in regime shifts, but taking account that we can have slow ecosystems dominated by long life species, we can see, or we can expect that also a possibility is to have these slow transitions. But this is important to recognize because the tipping point here is already crossed. But, okay, we have problems with the drivers, but the ecosystem has not responded in a phase shift, it is responding very slow. And this has really huge implications for management because this slow system, these slow transitions, these transient dynamics give us borrowed time to intervene. If we make a rapid intervention in these systems, we can intervene and then avoid the full collapse of the ecosystems before to be really late. So it's important to recognize that we have these both possibilities, no? To change to phase shifts, but also to have these slow transitions. But already the tipping point was crossing. And some open questions for you arise from this presentation, Steve, and basically there are two. Facing the emergence of the different disturbance regime, which will be the role of this ecological memory in the response of ecosystems, not only for marine, but also for other environments like terrestrials. If this type of new regimes are driving shifts in species composition and functional roles rather than the existence of non-linearities, and if this mechanism of ecological memory is really providing some hope that they are explained now, these people can want to see some optimism in this way. And the other is also related to the early warning indicators. It's true that in marine ecosystems we have no evidence of these early warning indications. There are very few papers exploring this, and I ask why is this lack of research in these ecosystems, and also if early warning indicators can be applied to these more complex and slow dynamics ecosystems. And it's all. Thank you.